Hello and welcome back to Aubrey, Books and Coffee. Please grab your favorite beverage of choice and join me. Oh, you guys, it's the end of July. Hallelujah. I'm partially sad because I am going to miss being able to do the lazy river at our local water park. I have so enjoyed being able to do that. I'm also going to miss having this extra time with Katie, with her being home and taking her to ice skating and stuff. And we've just had a really good time around here. I am not, however, going to miss the heat. I know none of you are. This has been a crazy summer for heat, am I right? Cannot wait to get into the fall and start getting that cooler weather coming in. But I do have a good list of books that I finished this month despite the heat and alongside that lazy river. So without further ado, let's get going. First, I'm going to review In the Lives of Puppets. Now, this one was so good, you guys. Obviously, I gave it a 3-star. Thought about giving it a 4-star, and the only reason I didn't was because you know how I like my endings to be, and this ending was kind of bittersweet, and I felt like it didn't give me a full resolution, which I'm sure was the author's actual purpose. Like, they wanted you to kind of piece together stuff yourself. And it was beautifully written, and the robots themselves were absolutely hilarious. I cannot emphasize that enough. You guys will be laughing out loud. They are fantastic, but I wanted more resolution in my ending than just you see them walking into the sunset and wonder how it ends. So because of that, I ended up giving it a 3-star, but I highly recommend this one. The next one is Divine Rivals. Oh my gosh, you guys, and in case it didn't give it away with the beautiful edition being right up there, I loved it. 5 stars, and I even have the other beautiful edition up for grabs when we do our drawing. Oh my gosh, you guys, it was so good. I loved the whole plot premise of these two bitter rival journalists, and that there's a war going on, and that her brother, she doesn't know what's going on with her brother on the front lines, and I loved everything, and it kind of gave me feels of almost like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe with them using a wardrobe and stuff. So I was so good. It was so good, you guys. It was so sweet. And then just when you think you know how it's going to end, it doesn't end that way at all. And it lets you know you need to get book 2 as soon as it's available. So highly recommend you read this, but prepare yourselves because you're going to want book 2. Then I finished Gemina. This is book 2 in the Illuminae trilogy, and I gave that a 5-star. I was not let down. So many people said that the first one's so good, but the second one kind of sucks, and the third one's even worse. So I went in with kind of low expectations, and maybe that was in my favor because I thought it was fabulous. I really enjoyed it. I would venture to say I even like this one better than the first one. I loved the first one because I had never had a book that was all files and emails and text messages and things like that after the fact that people find and are going through. In this one, it's the same kind of concept, so you knew that going into it, but the dialogue was so good and funny, and there was some snarkiness going on between characters, and I really loved it, and I recommend it, and I can't wait to get the third one. Then I finished Ink Blood Sister Scribe. This one I gave a 3-star. It started out with a bang, and it's such a cool premise to have these sisters that aren't able to stay together because one of them has a power or ability, if you will, where the different protection spells and things that are in these books to kind of keep her and her sister safe don't work on her. And so when she's around, they get faulty. So she's always having to keep moving and can't set down roots and stuff. But you do see her in a relationship with another woman that is so sweet, and it's cute to watch and to read and be a part of. But it's one of those where it was such a good idea, and it is well written. But about halfway to 2/3 through the book, it started feeling like it was dragging out. Like they didn't know what the author was planning on doing for the ending, like how to get this really cool thing that's going on to wrap up. So I was really let down the last third of the book and was just wanting to hurry up and finish it. So that's why it got a 3-star, because it was still a good read. I'm satisfied with the ending, but I have no desire to ever read it again. Then I finished Revel. This I gave a 4-star. It was so cute. If you liked Night Circus, if you liked Moulin Rouge, you're going to love this because it has both of those kind of mashed together and it is so cute. Their relationship is really cool. The whole premise of magic and how it's being used is really cool with coins that they can, or gemstones, excuse me, that they can get magic from and stuff. And each family has a name. And so we're following the main character whose last name is Revel. She's a Revel. So that their particular gift is to get magic from gemstones and they can convince anybody to do anything they want. So it's really cute though. I really enjoyed it and highly recommend that you guys check this out. Just keep Moulin Rouge in mind because it follows a lot of that. Then I did Flowers in the Attic. Now this got a 3-star. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Like I had seen the TV show. They left a lot out that was in this book. And a lot of the book makes you have the oogie feelings. I don't want to give anything away. Just suffice to say, bad mother. And I'm sorry, but I still judge grandma. And oh my gosh, like I'd like to think if it was me at some point, I would have left the attic. I would have been like, forget all of you. I'm taking my brothers and sisters and I'm out of here. But I was bawling like a baby. If you've read this before, you know what part I'm talking about. Bawling like a baby. And it hurt my heart. And it was just such a heavy book. And so I gave it a 3-star. Wouldn't say I would recommend it for anybody, but it is one I'm not sorry that I've read and will never pick up again. Then I finished Iron Widow. This one was a 3-star for me. I know there's more in the series, and so I do plan on continuing the series. And it was well written, and I enjoyed it. It just gave me a lot of the same feelings that you had watching Pacific Rim. It just felt very, very similar to that, mixed with, of course, a very sexist society. So women, were disposable. But it was well written, and so I will continue this series moving forward. But it just didn't blow me away, I guess, is what I was, hoping for. Then I finished More Than You'll Ever Know. I gave this a 4-star. This surprised me. It was on one of my top 3 last year that I was excited to see come out for the month. So it was in my Advent jar. I'm glad that I got to pick it and read it. It's an interesting twist on a story you've probably seen in the news or heard before of somebody who has 2 families. So in this, we're following a main character who is a journalist, and she's interviewing a woman after a murder has been committed and is trying to kind of get to the bottom of the story, but she's refusing to talk to anybody. But she's the one that essentially, not the journalist, but the woman she's wanting to interview, had 2 husbands. Yeah, she actually had 2 families. And so it kind of goes through her story as they're talking together, and you're kind of not only digging into how it came about and what happened at the end, but you're also digging into the journalist herself and what struggles she has right now going on in her life. And it's just interesting how the 2 characters are kind of working off of each other, helping each other to figure things out. And then there is a small twist at the end that I enjoyed. So I highly recommend this one. Then I finished Counterfeit. This was also a 4-star and another surprise for me. And it was also my Advent jar pick from top 3 I was excited to see. And so far, I have not been disappointed. So I'm glad when I do the top 3 for you guys because it ends up being ones that I read later. And I have so far enjoyed them all. For Counterfeit, it was so sweet. It follows a conversation that this woman's having with an old friend of hers from school. And essentially, her friend makes counterfeit designer bags and she sells them back to the store. So basically, she'll purchase one at regular price, like $3,000. I could never pay $3,000 for a purse. I just could not. But she'll buy that. And then she'll take it home. She'll get the counterfeit that looks just like it and take it back and have a story for the clerk that's basically like, oh, it wasn't the right color, or it was a gift, but the person didn't like it, so I'm returning it. And so she'll get her $3,000 back for the counterfeit. So you can see how this business is kind of working and everything. Well, she has this friend who, like I said, they've been friends for a while, and she, is running on some hard times. And so she decides that she'll help her friend in this endeavor, and things go wild as they do. There was also a small little twist at the end I didn't see coming because you hear from both perspectives. And so that was really cool too. Then I finished The Language of Thorns. Now, this I gave a 3-star. I wasn't disappointed in it. It's a Leia Bardugo, so I had such high hopes for it, though, and I think maybe that was part of my problem. Also, keep in mind, guys, I am not a huge fan of short stories. Now, I went into this knowing that it was going to be a bunch of like little fables and stories and things like that in there, and the artwork is incredible. I mentioned this during my Friday sprints. Shameless plug again of Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern. Join us. But along the edges, like I showed you in those sprints, the artist that worked with Leia on this slowly adds art along the edges that have to do with the story. So it's a really cool concept. I loved that. And the first few stories were incredible. I really enjoyed them. They were a little dark, but I really enjoyed them, especially when she would talk about Grisha Steel and stuff like that. So you got part of that Grishaverse, and I just loved that. Then there was a story that felt like the Nutcracker. Then there was a story that felt like the Little Mermaid. Then there was a story that... So it started feeling almost like the first few could be stories that were actually told in the Grishaverse. Like one of our characters is sitting by a fire, giving these stories to the kids kind of thing. You could totally see that. Then it started feeling like stories that... didn't really fit, I didn't think, and that kind of dragged on for a long time. So some of them were really cool. Some of them, especially towards the end, not so much for me. So that's why I ended up getting a 3-star. Then I read One Dark Window. As you can see, it got a 2-star, and I am sorry because there are so many people out there that absolutely love this book. I am not one of them. It has an interesting, but I don't like it, magic in here that uses cards, like deck of cards, but these cards all have like the Nightmare or the Maiden and stuff like that. And each one gives you a certain power or ability, and this main character girl can actually see these cards and knows who has them and what they are. And it's just kind of trying to put together an entire deck to have the ultimate power and stuff. And it just didn't do it for me. For me, it really dragged on in places. It was very confusing in some places, and I'm just not a fan. It was not for me. Then I finished Star Wars Knight Errant. Now this I gave a 3-star. It was a solid Star Wars novel. Just still kind of bored, you guys. Here's hoping next month will be better. So far, only one of these, thousands of years before A New Hope, novels have just been kind of boring and dry for me. But again, I want to get through all of them, and that's what I'm doing, right? Then I finished Robin Hobb's Fool's Errand. Oh my gosh. Of course, I gave it a 4-star. This is the first in the Tawny Man trilogy. It had my Fitz back. I'm so happy to have Fitz. Now, several people in the Friday sprints warned me, it's going to break your heart, though, and now I see why. After this first book, I can totally see why. I feel like, because I'm not going to ruin anything, what happened was written true to the characters, and while it did make me cry because I'm a big mushball and I get attached to my characters, all of them, I will say it was beautifully written. It was very, very well written. It wasn't like a off the scenes, someone got stabbed and you come back and they're like, yeah, so-and-so got stabbed in a battle that you didn't even see. It wasn't like that. So I always appreciate that, because when you get attached, you want to at least be there for that. But definitely have your tissue boxes ready. And it was really, really good. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to continue this trilogy. Next, I finished Silver in the Bone. This I gave a 4-star. Several people in the book club actually gave it a 5-star. It was so fun. I loved this story. It's very Camelot kind of feel, Arthur and the Round Table and Merlin. And there were several surprises in there we didn't see coming. And it is an adventure. And it's this brother and sister trying to make it happen and survive. And it was just so cute. It was so good. And there is going to be more in this series. So we are, of course, going to try to pick those up. Right, guys? Then I finished Ruin and Rising. This I gave a 3-star. I love how she wrapped up the trilogy for me. It hit all the buttons. It answered all the questions. It was very satisfying. That being said, once again, there were several places in here where it just felt very convoluted and it just kind of dragged on instead of just doing the battle. So it felt almost like the first two were setting it up so much that she wanted to have like this epic showdown, and it just, to me, didn't deliver. But that's just my opinion. But now that I have finally finished it, I look forward to actually watching the television show. I'll have to let you guys know what I think of that. Then I attempted to finish Stormless. Yeah, I had to DNF it. And I hate that because Carly recommended this back in June when I, was getting recommendations from her. This is a self-published author like myself and actually a high school student. And so I so wanted to just get on board. And I like fantasy. I really do, even high fantasy. So I couldn't get behind it. There were so many things that, for me, and this is just me, that it kind of dragged in places, and in some places the dialogue felt very, I don't know how to say it without it sounding rude, because I definitely don't want to do that, because good for him for sitting down as a high school student and writing this thick novel, and it's going to be a series. So good for him for reaching out and achieving his dreams. And it's not bad writing. It's, I guess I'll say, young writing, if that makes sense. Like if your teenager's ever written a story and had you read it and you're like, okay, but because you're, like 30 years older than them or whatever, 20 or 30 years older, you would word it differently because you're older. That's what it was. And it was just because it was so young, it kept pulling me out of it, because if it had been like a middle school, totally would have been perfect. But to try to do a fantasy, especially like a high fantasy, you need older language. You need it to be more mature level. And so for me, I just couldn't get through it, and I wanted to do it justice, and I love reading, and I always have a lot of books that I read every month. So unfortunately, I had to DNF it. But that being said, I still recommend you guys go look into it and pick it up. Just go into it knowing it's younger style writing, but the characters are fun. That, as far as I always get at least to 100 pages. Then I read The Black Witch. Oh my gosh, you guys, such a surprise for me. 5-star. People had talked about the Black Witch Chronicles. We had, and this was chosen because there were bookish items that were from the Black Witch Chronicles. And so I did it just to try to fulfill that prompt, not knowing I would love it. I love all the characters. I love the snark. I love that it feels a little bit like Harry Potter, but also feels like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of another high school drama angst, fighting, the girls hate each other, they're after each other kind of book. But yeah, it just, oh my gosh, it is so good. Mixed with politics, mixed with, of course, magic and other beings that are at this school as well. And it's just, oh my gosh, it just checked all the boxes for me. I absolutely loved it. I'm just going to even say this much. And if you've read The Black Witch, you know what I'm about to talk about. If you haven't, you need to read it so you do know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to say the whole thing with the chicken cracks me up. Oh my gosh, if I had to deal with the chicken. So yeah, it's so good. You guys have got to read it. Then I finished Dreams of Gods and Monsters. Now, this I gave a 3-star. Once again, it was the thickest of all three of them, and I'm glad that the Daughters of Smoke and Bone trilogy has now been finished, and I can set that aside. I love Karoo. I love all the characters. It was very satisfying at the ending. It just, for me, felt like it kind of dragged on. Like maybe it could have been 100 pages smaller, and then I would have gotten there quicker, wrapped it up quicker, and it would have felt satisfying, and I would have been happy, and it would have been great. But instead, it felt like there were about 100 pages added into that story that just padded it and weren't really necessary for me. Then I finished Every Heart a Doorway. This I gave a 3-star. And this was a recommendation from Lynn. The last Friday sprint of every month, I have everybody there kind of give me a recommendation and then go off of that. And I add that to my monthly TBR. By the time that we had met up, though, I had already recorded my July TBR. So that's why you didn't see it in the beginning. But I wanted to make sure to mention it here. She recommended it, and it was very cute. It was very sweet. It was an interesting concept of people or kids, I should say, that go through these doorways into other worlds. And they either love it or they hate it. Now, if they hated it, then they're trying to recover PTSD style, but if they loved it and wish they could go back, but it's not letting them back in, they go to this special place where a woman who's also done that herself tries to help them come to terms with it. But it's very interesting because somewhere along the way, something goes wrong and now students are getting murdered. And so basically you're trying to uncover what's happening there. And I have to admit, I didn't see the killer as being the killer. It took me by surprise. It was good though. It was very sweet, very cute. Not one that I was absolutely enamored with or in love with. That's why a 3-star, but I do recommend it. Then I read Our Vengeful Souls. And I gave this one a 4-star. This was Once Upon a Book Club June's book box. It was so cute. Now, to get a full review, you'll have to watch that video. I'm sorry, I'm shameless plugging her way here. Then I finished Without a Trace. And this was a 3-star for me by Colleen Coble. And I read this because Amy took me to go meet the author, and that was a lot of fun. She is a sweet, beautiful, wonderful woman. Highly recommend you meet her if you can. And she's written several books. This is the first one in this series, and you know me, I love series, and so I read it. It was very good. I learned a lot of facts about search and rescue dogs, which was really cool. And as a mother, it kind of pulled my heartstrings because it follows a mother whose husband and son went down in a plane crash, and she's never given up hope that there's a survivor. So it's really, really kind of cool. And there's also kind of like a murder mystery going on there too. And it was a fun ride. Not my usual style of book that I pick up because it's just regular adult fiction. And it wasn't even really a thriller as much as it was just the mystery and the warm fuzzies. And so that's why I gave it a 3-star, but I do recommend it. Then I finished Secrets Never Die. Now this I gave a 2-star, and this was actually my very first NetGalley book. So I'm excited. This won't even come out until I believe at the end of August. And so it was really cool to finally get to see one, ahead of time. It starts out with a bang. It starts out so good, and you're loving the ride, and it's a lot of fun, and you love these characters, this group of friends, and they have this secret that they do every year on Halloween, and it's so cool and spooky. And then something happens, which pulls you in, and you're like, okay, I totally thought this was going to be a 5-star, honestly. Then they added an extra layer. Okay, I don't think that layer was needed, but I see you want to kind of make it a longer book. You want to make it enjoyable for everybody, and you're trying to hit everybody's, in the audience there. So, okay, it'll be a 4-star, but a solid 4-star. Then the author threw in another layer. Okay, well now it's taking away. It's actually very distracting with this extra layer, so it's going to be a 3-star. Then they threw in another layer. Okay, now it's just annoying. Like, it really got to that point where I was like, okay, I'm just annoyed. What more are you going to throw in here? The kitchen sink? Like, this is ridiculous. It just wasn't for me. That being said, this author's written several books that lots of people love. So it could just be this author's not my writing style. I like to have a couple of layers in a story, a couple of different stories going on. I don't want it to be 7 different things that are from your typical horror genres just being thrown in there, and not like it's supposed to be funny, but like sincerely moving your plot along. It just wasn't for me. And there were so many chapters that were just the characters checking their Instagram accounts and getting messages from this unknown person. And like, that's all the chapters were just them reading these messages and then texting each other, hey, did you get this message? No, mine actually said. So many chapters that were like that. And it just lost me because of that. It wasn't my thing. So I gave it the 2-star. I did finish it though, and I am so excited, and I'm grateful, NetGalley, that you gave that to me, so thank you. Just not going to be my favorite. So that being said, that marks 22 books I attempted to read. I only got 21 done because one was DNF'd. But it was a full month. It was a happy month. And I thank you guys for being here. With my Nesta stairs, I did knock some out, as you can see there. And with my Frodo, I also got in a lot of walking and got in some miles. I'm getting caught up. I will be done by the end of the year. These numbers will be at 0 by the end of this year, I promise. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please like, subscribe, send your friends, and I'll see you in August.